you hear me at the back? Awesome. So full of cold. Hi, so I'm Brian. I'm going to be doing your Q&A this evening. Please introduce yourselves and tell me a little bit about the film. Let's start at the far end.
Okay, brilliant. Hi, I'm Sarah Sanchez, so I'm the producer of Echelon. So Echelon was our graduate third year film. We just completed this summer, and I'll let Jen kind of explain this.
Hi guys, I'm Jennifer Masuzola. I'm the writer and director of Echelon. As Sarah said, it was our grad film that we poured probably entirely too much into. We believe it definitely did pay off, and it was a story that definitely needed to be told. And I'm kind of very happy that I had Sarah at my side to tell it.
I'm Luke, and I did everything on the Tyson Fury. Literally everything. So it's actually an advert for his NG brand. So we rebranded everything to do with his Furosity brand recently, and they brought me on board because they didn't want to do like a standard advert, and they wanted to do comedy sketches because that's the way boxing's moving now as well. I see Guy Ritchie just did the one for the AJ Dubois fight. So that's the route they wanted to go down, and they brought me on because I used to do comedy for BBC Wales. There you go. So I used to do comedy back in Wales, so they brought me on, and that's where that thing come from. It's really weird. We did it in a week, from pre-production to post. It was a mental week, but yeah.
Hello, I'm Owain. I wrote and directed Revenger, which was sort of a desperate attempt to do something after like lots of attempts to get funding or stuff like that, and just do it as cheaply and like dirtily and messily as possible, and go back to like how I used to make things as a child, to the extent I used the same camcorder that I used as a child to film it, which was naive at best.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm the writer and producer of Cake. It was made as part of Home Manchester's Young Film Collective programme.
What does Cake mean to you?
Cake is like my first one baby. It was like the first screenplay I ever wrote, first short film I ever worked on, first short film I produced. Cake is sort of not directly inspired, obviously, but like, you know, a lot of the sort of feelings of being in my sort of mid-20s as a woman, and kind of, you know, looking at other women in my life and you know, that I've known from a long time ago, and being at completely different stages in our lives, and you know, thinking about, you know, what makes one woman, you know, in the eyes of society, I guess, like more of a woman than another woman.
Revenger, you talked a little bit about using an old camcorder. Like, the whole thing has a very DIY aesthetic, which you talked about. Being something that you did because you couldn't essentially achieve funding. Was it still an enjoyable experience, or was it more batting your head against technical issues rather than batting your head against funding issues?
It was enjoyable. It was the most challenging shoot I've ever done, because I was using this 25-year-old camcorder, and it was the middle of July in Glossop, which means it was torrential rain. So if a single drop got on this camera, I felt like it's just going to explode in my hands, and I didn't want to have to use like a plug-in afterwards to make it look retro. And I convinced myself, like, no, it needs to look like the film's trapped 25 years in the past as well. So it's sort of, but it became really lovely, because as much as I was like Terry Gilliam in Lost in La Mancha, railing against the elements, just hiding at points with a camcorder under me, going, I'm never going to film this. The cast were just like, come on, like, we want to do it. And I was like, you do? I haven't just, you know, forced people to make a film against their will. And they were like, we want to make it. And so it sort of like brought me back from my darkest moment as a director, where I was like, I don't know why, you know, I felt like sometimes people volunteer their time and you feel like they're doing it against their will, weirdly, but I forgot that people want to do stuff. And it was nice to be reminded that people want to do stuff. And get tied to a tree up top of a hill. Fantastic. Great fun.
Speaking of creative freedom, how difficult was it working for an advertising brand and for Tyson Fury. Like, did you feel that film was yours, or did you feel that film's your interpretation of what someone told you to do?
No, it's piece of piss. I'm being honest. I had total creative freedom to do whatever I want. They were just like, cool. Just, yeah, I did everything. Did the creative, directing, writing, producing, editing. Didn't do the sound mix actually. So, no, I did do the sound mix. Didn't do the score. It's the only thing I didn't do. Didn't record the sound either. But everything else, yeah, no, complete creative freedom to do whatever I want. I pitched. I think we've got 5 campaigns coming up for the next year. We've got the next year planned out and what we could do in. We're doing one next week that we're going to launch on Amazon Prime, so when you watch on VOD you'll see it. Basically you'll, if you buy a can of Ferocity, if you're into e-boxing, if you buy a can of Ferocity, upload your receipt to the website, you can be in a chance to win an all expenses paid trip with ringside seats to Saudi Arabia for the rematch against Usyk. So there you go. I was supposed to have some cans of Ferocity on me today, but they're stuck in a warehouse in D-side. Yeah, I had complete creative freedom. I think my pitch was, let's remake Tom Hardy's This Means War. The paintball scene from that. Clearly Tyson's not as flexible as Tom Hardy, so we hid his face for all of it, which is definitely Tyson the entire time. Yeah, no, I had complete creative freedom. They were like, cool, here's some money, go do what you want, and Tyson just rocks up and does what I tell him to do, really. So yeah, no, it's a good laugh, a good day. Got bit by mosquitoes a lot. So, yeah, fun. It's fun.
With Echelon, one of the things I noticed was that it feels very much that it's from the child or the younger girl's point of view, in the sense of she lets her mum down in potentially this big dramatic confrontation. The next scene it's resolved. You said in your intro that it's a story that needs to be told. Is it your story from that point of view, or is it someone else's story that you've tried to translate, and therefore that conflict is?
That's a really good question. It's 2 stories fighting for priority, which is what I think we see a lot through the montage scene. And in Echelon, it's my story as well as my protagonist's story. Now, my element of it comes from the more personal mum side. So in Echelon, we basically see our protagonist going for her dreams, and she's really veering for it at no matter what cost. That kind of, I think everyone in this room knows that when you've kind of got a goal and you've got a dream you want to achieve, it comes first, even when you don't want it to, or even sometimes when it's not ethic or it's too ethically good for it to. And personally, I was in a stage in my life where I was at sort of achieving my goals. I got to study abroad, and as soon as I got to the country, as soon as I got to Canada, I got the phone call that my aunt had passed away from cancer, and none of the family knew that she had it. And I was just obviously heartbroken, but I was also so shocked at the timing that when everything in life seems kind of perfect, something happens or something sort of gets in the way. And then our protagonist, Solana, is a ballet dancer and has been all her life, and has still struggled in the ballet world in stuff like not being able to get shoes her proper colour, which is really, really important in ballet, or just facing a lot of prejudice, or always being the only different one in the room. So I kind of married those 2 stories together, and I was just like, this is a bit of me, this is a bit of you, and then everyone was kind of the canvas for all of that to be portrayed on.
Production question on Echelon. I think we're all filmmakers in here. Could you tell us a little bit about the crowdfunding campaign and how that allowed you to make the film the way you did?
Yeah. So the crowdfunding we did on Kickstarter. I'm sure people are familiar with that fund page. And it was a 30-day campaign. And I think what was a real strength with Echelon, as Jen noted, was the authenticity in these stories that we wanted to tell. And so our lead actress, Rachel, when we first pitched it to her, the first thing she said was, well, this is my story, and I've been wanting to tell it for a while. As a ballerina who's struggled with issues such as the point shoes and whatnot, and it's something that I think in the past few years has just kind of reached social media as something that needs to be addressed, that was kind of swept under the rug. So we kind of addressed it in that perspective first as a story that needs to be told for those reasons, but also for the dreamers, that we all have a dream, we all have a passion, and obstacles are inevitable, but the point is we have that resilience and persistence to keep going, and Echelon is kind of that kind of happily ever after that we hope for in the end, where we kind of we can have both. We can have we can have our dreams and our passions, and it was kind of the reality that Rachel's hoping will come into light a bit more in the ballet world, at least in terms of inclusivity. So it kind of blew up through our social media page initially. I think consistency with Lynn was key, and we each dropped a bit of a personal touch on our crowdfunding video, and just really navigated within local ballet studios around Manchester, and also reached out to companies around like London, and we just kind of approached it, I guess, from a raw reality of what ballerinas were experiencing in the real world, and even just fellow creatives and filmmakers, and it just built a bit of a community of dreamers, and from there Echelon just kind of built a community online on our crowdfund, and so we managed to raise all of our funds within that month, and I think we exceeded it by our budget by 25% as well, and so we were really grateful for the support.
With The Good, the Bad and the Fury, is the only way to make a Western these days to not make a Western?
It's never the point to make a Western film. Never the point. I was only making a Western 2 days before I shot it. The entire way, yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. I think we shot it on, what day did we shoot it on a Wednesday?
I think so.
Yeah, I cast you on a Tuesday. I said, are you free tomorrow to be shot by Fury? That's how I pitched it, obviously. Yeah, I was like, cool. I was like, I don't know what to do. I had this really cool guy. It was supposed to be more of a paintball shoot than it was a Western. And the guy at the start, Paul, is a really, really good friend of mine, and he just looks like the devil. And he's always dressed in cowboy gear, and I'm like, oh man. Because when we recorded the location, we saw the Western set, and we were like, oh, it'd be cool to set it in there. And I was like, if only I knew a cowboy. And I was like, oh wait, I do. So 2 days before, I just rang him up. I was like, look, I'm completely rewriting the script. Are you free? Do you want to do it? And he was like, yeah, so it was completely, yeah, the Western side of it, I think it was written on a Monday, signed off on Tuesday, shot on Wednesday. I think it was very, very quick turnaround. And obviously, it was very, very quick turnaround. So, yeah, I thought doing a Western would be a bit of fun. So, but yeah, it wasn't supposed to, because he acts like Michael Myers throughout a lot of it. So, it's, yeah, I think so, yeah. The only way through the Western is not a bit Western, apart from the ending. So, it's a bit of fun.
With Revenger, it's very much a story about characters, or one character that's not moved on from being a child, like, or a teenager, or an adolescent, or however you want to frame that. And I think that's true of lots of like insightful stories, that they're padded behind adult issues and things that are a big deal, but ultimately we're still dealing with that childhood trauma, whatever it may be. Was that your intent going in, to be like, this character is just who's always ever been, and there we are, it's just very raw?
My impetus in writing it was I wanted to make something that wasn't overly convoluted, which is why it's sort of called Revenger. So it's like revenge, everyone understands revenge, and then I wanted to sort of, not satire the idea of revenge, but sort of what he was getting revenge for to feel like almost a letdown in a way. When you find out, he said, someone joked he had genital warts, like that's nothing. But then at the same time, I was like, well, I remember so much shit people said about me in school. I hold on to all that stuff, and when I've shown the film in places, people have come up and gone, oh my gosh, there was this kid in my class who said this about me, and I hated them 30 years, and it's like, I think that's an extremely like relatable character thing. And when I first met Russell for the part, he had this big smile on his face. I got off the train, and he was waiting for me, and he's really tall, so I was terrified, and he was just like, I've got something to tell you. And I said, oh my gosh, they're not here. So he led me to a cafe, and then he sat me down, he told me this really personal story that he's shared on a podcast and stuff previously, so I have his blessing to share it. And basically, the plot of the film happened to him in real life, and I sent him this script, and he was like, when I was a teenager, this boy at a football game beat me up, and it really hurt me and traumatized me, and then 20 years later, I moved him back in with my sister, and I realised he was living across the street from me. So one day I got the courage And I walked him to the football field where he beat me up. And I said, do you remember what happened here? And this guy was stoned out of his mind, had no idea what was going on. And eventually, like, he got his closure from taking it. He did not tie him to a tree. He did not end up impaling him by mistake. It was fine. He did the correct version of it. But it was like, that. I think that's where it was a cathartic experience for Russell making it. And I feel like, hopefully, for anyone else harbouring childhood trauma, it's a cathartic experience watching it. I don't know. Just, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. Phew.
Sticking with writing on Cake, there's a great scene in the middle of it that's just awkward. Like, you see lots of films and the language of cinema is like, if you want to express awkwardness, you do it like through subjective dialogue. It's like, no, it's just fresh. These characters don't get on. This something doesn't quite right, and it's really just, like I said, it's new and fresh. Is that something that you wanted to express, or is that just the way it came out?
No, I definitely wanted it to be awkward. It's that kind of, you know, I mean, she has obviously deliberately turned up at her door, but that thing of, you know, running into an old friend and having, you know, nothing to say to them. But yeah, I deliberately wanted it to come across as really awkward, and I hope that came across.
Are there any questions from the audience?
I have one.
There you go.
For Avenger, I really, it's not a question, but I really like, you know, into the camcorder, I really like how, like, when there's some shots back when they were like interrogating, you know, like you tied him up in a tree and he was telling about his story, why he's doing this. And it's like all quite dark, it's very dark in the shadows. It is quite funny. But I think like that balance of the darkness of the shadows kind of make it, is it funny, is it not funny, is it a joke, or is it actually, you know, do something to him? So it's like kind of like the balance of how the camcorder made for the audience to watch. Like, is it a comedy, or was it like a quite intense moment happening right now? It's like that. I just thought, is that what you thought?
Yeah, it was like, because so the first day of filming I did, and the second day Joe did, and that was all the woodland stuff. And he'd never used this camera before. He's a photographer. I just gave him the rain was pouring, saying keep this umbrella over it. Just, you know, I'm going to be blowing smoke out of a can and stuff like that, and all these sorts of weird things. And so I couldn't, and the screen is like this big as well. So I couldn't get over his shoulder to try and get under the umbrella and see what was going, and I was quite worried when I looked at the rushes, and I sort of adopted this mantra on Revenger, which is, it is what it is. And when you see the film, as I showed it to people, going, is it too dark? Do I need to try and figure out a way to completely color correct this, do some sort of, you know, ridiculous AI upgrade to paint Russell's face on or something? But I was going, no, because when people watch it, they take it as at face value, and they find meaning in it, even if there wasn't necessarily, I wasn't going, this shot needs to be dark, or this shot needs to be light. It does create a mood, and it fed into my shot on video aesthetic as well. It's there's this great, I'm going off on a tangent, sorry, but there's this great American film called Halloween Party that is made by these students. It's on YouTube in its entirety, and it was just these kids made this film, shot on a camcorder. They made Halloween in their half term, and it got shown on Canadian TV. And it's so badly filmed, and some shots are just pitch black, but it's you love it because you're I just love the filmmaking impetus behind this, and I've sort of wanted this to have that. We can't spend time, we can't care. We're just making a film. We got 2 days, we've got to do it, and yeah. And I'm glad it had a different interpretation from when I, as a filmmaker, look at it and go, is that too dark? You're going, I like that. Thank you.
So before I let you go, would you like to tell us what is coming next from you?
Currently working on another script, which is exciting. Yeah, that might hopefully get in shot before the end of the year. Fingers crossed.
I found out last week I'm on the BFI Stories to Shorts thing, so I'm doing that next. I guess that starts on Tuesday.
We've got a new show coming out called I'm with Time Machine, which we're screening in here tomorrow night. And then we're doing, Amazon. We're doing a campaign for Amazon. We're doing a Halloween campaign, then we're doing a Christmas campaign, then we're going to Saudi Arabia for the USIP rematch. Then we're going to Saudi as well for the Bain Baton Bivol fight. So yeah, not a lot.
We are working on a musical together, a short form musical, about therapy. And it's just two completely polar opposite themes coming together. to a new community. So we're pretty excited about that in early stages of pre-production.
Yeah, so it's called Sonda. It kind of surrounds that, the context, philosophy of what Sonda means. And we're really excited, hopefully start filming that next year.
Thank you. Round of applause.